Welcome back to the Montana Garage. This video starts with failure, unfortunately. All right, we just got this thing, in the last video we had it started and, running. Since then, I don't think I filmed it, but I adjusted the timing, messed with the idle screws, and now she fires right up and she does her little idle magic. I guess we can do that real quick before we talk about failure. So we gotta turn our switch on. I still don't have the fuel pump wired in correctly, so I gotta jump it off the battery here. There's our fuel pump buzzing away. And then we turn the old key. Starts right to life. That part's good. That part's not the failure. But let me shut this switch off and then we'll talk about where we failed. I'm not sure how or why we failed here, but somehow we got a little screwed up on our oil pan gasket or something. I wiped up the drips. You can see through, if you look at the blue gasket between the timing cover and the oil pan, I can't get my hand in there because the camera's right where the hand would go. Right there. We got an oil leak, and it's not a good one. So I thought maybe at first I was going to get lucky because the bolts were not super tight. And if you go back to the original video where I put the oil pan on, I talked about how my uncle used to give me a hard time because I always tighten those up too much. I'm having a heck of a time with this light. I had it up there somewhere. I would tighten those bolts up too much and then I caused a leak that way. So I was a little gentle when putting the oil pan on. And there's probably a torque spec. I don't know. I didn't do that. I just did, not too tight. And so I saw it was leaking and I hoped and prayed that maybe they just were loose. And I crawled in here and they actually were fairly loose. So in a series of like 3 or 4 times, I've snugged them up a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more, enough to where now the front 2 bolts are 1/2 inch, the rest are 7/16. At least that's the head on them. I have those like literally as tight as they will go. And I keep sneaking up on the other ones. I know I'm just gonna make them too tight and destroy the gasket, but no matter how tight I get it, I can't get rid of the oil. And the oil is coming between, it's not coming out between the oil pan and the gasket. It's coming between the timing cover and the gasket. So I don't know what or why. This is one of them Holley one-piece valve cover gaskets where all they tell you to do, I think, is put a little goop in each corner. So I don't think there's any goop like under the gasket, between the gasket and the timing cover. So this is really a bummer. Looks like I'm also getting a drip of oil right there. I just crawled under a little bit ago and I can't figure out where that one's coming from. So I got something in the back leaking too. I'll have to look again after I had it running, and I couldn't find that one. There was nothing dripping, so I didn't know if it came from the drain plug and ran back. I couldn't figure it out. Anyway, since I had it running again, I'll crawl back there again and see, but we got oil back there too. So obviously we got some issues here. I don't know, like I said, it's a bummer, and it's just a real downer. I wanted to move on to the rear end and doing some other stuff today and this weekend and get it ready to actually drive. But now I guess that's hot rodding. You run into snags along the way and you can't just throw in the towel and give up. You got to figure it out. So I guess we'll figure it out. I think before we go too crazy and start ripping shit apart and pulling motors and stuff, I probably have enough access under here to loosen the pan and drop it down. I'll probably have to get rid of this steering link. I can get to all the bolts. This front part's a little bit of a bugger because it's right under this cross member, but I think what I'm gonna try to do, and I don't know if this will work or if it's right or wrong, but it's worth a try to me before we start tearing the whole thing apart. I'm gonna loosen the bolts up, drop the pan. I don't know if I'm gonna drop it down or I'll kind of drop it more in the front, like loosen them all and the front ones more, or even, take the first 3 or 4 out and then just have the other ones hanging on and try to get the pan to where it will, drip down a little bit. And like I say, if I remember right, there's only RTV between the block and the gasket, like on all 4 corners. So if I can just get the pan to come loose from the gasket, and it shouldn't be glued to it, I don't think, and then maybe just try to see if I can see why it's leaking there, or obviously it's just not squishing the gasket enough. Maybe I'll try to fill in some RTV there maybe, and get it all put back together. Obviously I'll have to drain the oil, I think. But if I can get it cleaned up and get access to just maybe get some RTV in between the gasket and the timing cover. It's a cheap, you know, Chinese, I'm sure, China not Mr. Gasket, but just some cheap thing, chrome timing cover. I should have never bought one. Should have stuck with the original thing, but I had it on there before, and this thing was never like oil tight. It always leaked a little bit, but I didn't have this issue. So I don't know if I really should be able to blame it on the gasket or the timing cover or my inept ability of putting it all together, but I thought I did all right. But regardless, we got some work to do. So I guess that's what the rest of our day is all about. All right, well, I took a little time to whine and cry and feel sorry for myself and just be pissed off because this isn't really what I want to be doing. I want to be moving forward, not backwards. But I mean, and that's not really true. I know it just is what it is. It just kind of sucks when you get these little setbacks. But like I said before, that's hot rodding, and there's nothing we can do but move forward and try to fix it. I just got done cleaning out my little drain pan because hopefully I can reuse my brand new oil. So we're going to crawl under there and pull the plug and drain the oil, and then I'm going to loosen the pan bolts up. Hopefully I can, like I said, it's been a couple hours since I recorded. I didn't look back and see what I said. Hopefully I can just kind of, bloop the pan down like this enough to get that gasket surface all clean and maybe fill her up with a little RTV or Permatex or whatnot, and then we'll cinch her back together and see what happens. So that's my first attempt at trying to fix it. It may or may not work. We may have to pull the whole pan. In that case, we got to drop some steering, and anyways, whatever we got to do, we'll do it because we want to get this thing back on the road. So let's get to it, I guess. Oh, I think I mentioned I do have another, I never showed you, but right here you can see it's getting a little bigger right at the end of the wrench. I do have another little oil puddle. I did determine that, again, because I hate to tighten my gaskets up too much, because I got PTSD from my uncle yelling at me when I was a kid because I would tighten them too much and split them and ruin them and squeeze them out. I know all these things probably have torque specs, but I don't really do that. Usually I just tighten them. So now I tighten them less than I used to because, like I said, I used to get yelled at, or I know better than to over tighten them at this point. So I think I'm under tightening. My valve cover gasket bolts, or my valve cover bolts, were they weren't loose, but I was getting a leak out of the driver's side back corner of the valve cover. So I took the old shunk ratchet and snugged those up a little bit. So hopefully that takes care of that problem. I was afraid that I was getting a rear main or some other back of the oil pan thing, but that oil is coming from up top. So that's actually a little bit of good news in our bad situation. Let's get the oil drained and see what happens next, huh? All right, if you guys were at my live recently, we talked about, I don't even know what size this is. Actually, I put a different drain plug in it. Anyways, if you're at my live recently, we talked about, one of the guys asked the question, Blake asked the question, did you ever find that washer? And no, I haven't. So here's one more chance to find it, to see if it, with all the engine running, it kind of washed into the pan. I guess if it's down there, that doesn't mean it is going to come out of the drain plug, I guess, but we'll see. If you watched back a while ago, before I had the engine in the car, I was putting this oil pan gasket on it that's leaking, and I dropped some washers in the crankcase, which was not a slick move. Anyways, I guess we'll get a chance to look at what the oil looks like. Again, this motor is not brand new. It's been running before, so I don't expect there to be any issues with that, unless we got a washer all ground up in there. Guess that could be bad. Nothing on the little oil pan tip, or got a magnetic plug, nothing on there to speak of. So, all right, we'll let her drain. I got the oil covered up. I put a cardboard box on it that was it wasn't quite as big as the drain pan, but it sat on there. And then I threw an old sweatshirt over it to try to keep the cotton and stuff out of there, or dust from floating down in there, because I'm hopefully going to try to reuse this oil. Anybody that wants to take a bet, I'll bet you $100 that I spill it and kick it and tip it over and make a huge mess before I get to the point of actually using it. So that's how my luck works. I'm sitting here, I know it, I'm smart enough to know that it's probably going to happen, so I should probably do something a little better than stick it right here by this tire, but I like a good challenge, so I'm going to try to remember it's there and not kick it over. I got most of my tools I need under here, I guess, so I'm going to start loosening some bolts and seeing what we can find out. I'm not real sure if you guys can see that very good. I know it's kind of dark under here, but I'll let the camera run so we can see what happens. I should probably find my light. These front half-inch nuts are a little harder to get to than the rest of them, so I got this little swivel wobble dealy bobber, but it won't stay in position, so then I have to get it, jammed in there. I can't quite get my hand through here. I was making it work when I was tightening it, but no, I ain't smart enough to get it on there to loosen it, I guess. Hello, come on, come to Papa. This is really just not working out for me. Plan B. This little guy's a little easier to get on there. That's what I was using to tighten it. That's what I was using to tighten. Can anybody else out there talk, or just I can't? This is what I was using to tighten up the bolt as I went along the way to see if I could get the oil leak to stop. But in the end, I got that wobble thing on there because I could get it a little tighter. But this is easier to get on there. And I'll tell you, I got this thing about as tight as I can get it, so I've probably got the gasket ruined and squished, and I don't know these. I know if this was an old cork gasket, I would have split the thing. Hopefully these ones are a little better because I got her too tight probably. Alright, she's coming now. Uno. Alright, where can I see this other guy? There it is. This one's pretty tight too. The rest of them are easy to get to. I can get to them with the ratchet and the long extension. These front two, at least I can get to them. They're just a little tougher. Alright, dose. We need to switch, get rid of our little wobble. Switch to 7/16. Pull some or all or whatever we got to do to get this thing to drop down a little bit. These guys out of here. Anybody else ever had this happen to them? I'm sure. I mean, I'm not the only person that had an oil leak when they first started their motor, but I don't know. I used this fancy one-piece oil pan gasket, and I thought it was supposed to be the solution to the world's problems. It probably is. I probably just screwed something up. First be loose. If I get right here, I should be able to drop it right in my eye. That'll be good. Washer stayed up there. Well, looks like it wants to stay up there. Because I got it too tight. Tightened it into the dang oil pan. Let's see, I think I just did 3, so I'm gonna need some tool help on this one. Alright, I'm probably gonna have to take all these out of here. I got all of them about the last 2. I don't know if it'll work with me like that or if I gotta get them all. Alright, one more and we'll see if it's going to want to fall down at all or if I got to get those back 2 out. It's definitely loose, as in it's not like stuck to the gasket or stuck to the block, but I don't think. Figured I'd probably get these out of here too. But I thought maybe, you know, the fewer would be easier if I get a light so I can see where the last one 2 are. Come on now. I think I got on it. Alright, now we're just down to the last 2 in the corner back there. And I just need it to come down a little bit to get it cleaned out. Oh, what do I got that I can stick in there and maybe not lose in there? You know, I don't want to do that. back ones. Maybe I can loosen them but not take them all the way out. So kind of something holds something in place. Tilt it down where I need it. All right, so I think you guys can see that. And as it was running, I could see it coming out, and it was coming from the top. So it's not leaking at this surface, it's leaking up there. Or that's where it's coming out. I don't know if it's coming from one of the corners, but my theory was to try to get this pulled loose and get some gasket maker in there. So it's definitely held up at both corners how it's supposed to be. Now I'm not saying that nothing is getting in there from those spots. But updates from the garage floor with Brad at Montana Garage. So where we're at, I got the pan down and I got the gasket down. Now the gasket was definitely gooped in the corners like it's supposed to be. Let me see if we can show you. I got my light in a little different spot, but so the pan. Woo, hello! Little thunder boomers out there. So the pan gets gooped in these corners right there on each side. What it seemed like to me was happening is like almost like there's too much material in the gasket between. I can't really show you in there, so enough of the garage floor update. Well, I guess I'm still on the garage floor. So the U portion of that gasket, it almost seemed to me like the gasket needed to be spread out further to tighten that up. Like there was a little bit of excessive play in there. Like, you know, this hole was here and this hole was here, and the loop is this size, but the gasket was a hair bigger, and so there was just a little bit of wiggle in there. Now there's, you know, obviously 2 bolt holes, and it kind of has to be where it has to be. But I will definitely make sure and try to make sure it's pulled out as far as I can on each side. I don't know if that was it or what is it or why, but I guess where I'm at now is I got to clean the goop out of the corners. I keep calling it goop, you know, I got some blue Permatex in there or whatever. So I got to try to get that out of there and then re-Permatex it. And then I am going to, I'll hit the gasket and that little U channel in the timing cover with some brake cleaner or whatever and get it all nice and clean and unoily. And right, wrong, or indifferent, I am going to basically not fill, but I'm going to put some Permatex in that channel, you know, there in the timing cover. And that's not supposed to be required, but for whatever reason, you know, these parts aren't quite matching up to be perfect. Like I said, I have a cheap, probably Chinese timing cover, and maybe it's got just a little different, you know, radius or measurement, or who knows. But that's what we're gonna try to do. It's kind of hard to show you guys from down here on the garage floor and under the car in the dark, but we'll come back once I get this all cleaned up and I don't know, partially put together, all the way put together. Fingers crossed this solves the problem and it quits leaking and I don't have to like start over and take the whole pan out or whatever. So man, always something. And we're back. Moose and I got it all put back together. Like I showed you in there, I cleaned it all out, and then instead of like putting the Permatex up in the little slot, I just gooped a bunch of it on the top of that gasket where it went up in the slot. It was just easier to do it that way. And then I put it obviously in the corners, and I got all the bolts started again and all of them tightened up again. So I am going to probably wait. I looked at those Permatex instructions and it says to, you know, let it cure overnight. So I'll probably wait till tomorrow to try to fire it up again and put, actually, I'm not gonna put the oil back in. I'm gonna hopefully let that Permatex set up. And hopefully, like I said, there was just a little extra wiggle room in there, and that gasket maker is going to take it up and we'll back good to go without a giant oil leak, and we won't have to drop the pan or worse yet, pull the motor. So anyways, I think I'm gonna spend the rest of the day. Today I was supposed to work on getting the, where we are. Work on getting the rear end figured out. It's getting kind of late. I mean, it's not late, but it's late in the afternoon. And I don't know if I'm gonna start that today. I think I will spend a little bit of time sanding down my fenders. I got the last of my red stripe. Well, I got one red stripe on this fender, one red stripe on the other fender. So I gotta get those things sanded down. I'm taking them to bare metal just like the rest of the car so I can figure out what we're doing after that. This fender does have some filler in it, and this is just lacquer primer that they used to use back in the day. You know, this was in the 90s probably last time I primered it, and then plus I had it out in the weather and stuff, so the stuff doesn't really seal that great. So as you can see, water gets through there and we start to get a little cracking in some of the spots where there's a little filler. So I'm taking it all back out of there. Kind of hate, well, I don't hate doing it where it's cracked, but you know, we spent a lot of time doing that a long time ago. Like this, the little front valance or whatever it's called here, like you can see all the dings and dents in that thing. It looked pretty darn good when I started on it, but again, it had a couple cracks in it because you know, it's not full of filler, but this looks like it was all beat down like it was high, and then we beat it down, or my uncle or whoever we did it, you know, and then put a little thin layer of filler in there. Probably could be better than that, but again, that's probably how it's gonna go back together. A little thin layer of filler to make it smooth. Anyways, so I'm gonna spend the rest of the day doing that. Tomorrow we'll start on the rear end and we will fire the car up again once the gasket has set up. So we'll probably stop with this video here, keep it short and sweet so I can get it out to you guys and you can kind of be kept in the loop as we move towards Rocky Mountain Race Week. Basically lost a day today messing with this, but such is life. We'll work a few extra hours and get caught up hopefully. So thanks for watching. Like, share, subscribe, share the channel, comment, let me know if you got any questions or what you like, don't like, all that sort of stuff, and we'll see you on the next one.